doing this again.
I am sorry.
When the fog cleared, my lungs hit an invisible wall. Sitting on my side of the bed was a red men's Rolex. Impossible to miss and definitely not mine. I forced a laugh that tasted hollow. "Nice clock, babe," I said, keeping my voice light while my inside started firing off alarm bells. Elise glanced at the nightstand. Color bled from her face for a beat before she managed a practiced calm. "Oh, that old thing," she offered. "I found it at a garage sale. Thought you might like it." Right, because my wife of 22 years had suddenly become fond of picking up luxury timepieces at yard sales, the very woman who lectured me for spending $50 on work boots. "Tom, you still there?" Elisa's voice came through my laptop, too bright and too professional, the same smile she used on impossible clients. "Yeah, just admiring your find," I lied, keeping it casual while my mind ran over every possible nightmare. That wasn't a thrift store Rolex. It looked like something that cost more than what I took home in a month as a detective in our slow New England college town. "Listen, honey, I should get some sleep, big presentation tomorrow," I said, trying to steady myself as she closed the laptop. "Sure. Love you. Love you too." The screen went dark and I sat in the pale rectangle of the hotel room window, my reflection a stranger's face. 22 years of marriage, 2 kids, a mortgage, and a watch that wasn't mine. My gut tightened around a truth my heart refused to name. I opened the security camera app on my phone. One perk of being a cop is the propensity to prepare for the worst. After last year's break-in scare, I'd installed cameras around the house. Elise had griped they made her feel monitored. Now I understood there was another reason. I scrubbed back to the night I left for the conference. There it was, a silver BMW gliding into our driveway at 9:47 p.m. I knew that car. Carter Haynes, the advertising firm's CEO where Elise worked, loved to casually brag about his toys at company events. The BMW sat until 6:23 a.m. I cancelled my morning sessions, booked the earliest flight home, and made one call while heading to the airport. "Linda, it's Tom. Thinking of surprising Elise with breakfast tomorrow. Want to come? Bring George." My mother-in-law's delighted gasp told me she was already envisioning the drama it would produce. Linda Bishop Hartwell lived to be in on other people's crises. I picked up Linda and George at 7 sharp. George looked like he'd prefer any other location, while Linda practically vibrated, fretting about Elisa's diet and saying she worried Elise didn't eat enough. "Oh, I think she's been getting plenty of nourishment lately," I muttered. The silver BMW was parked boldly beside Elisa's car, and Linda's face moved from puzzled to instantly knowing to almost eager. "Isn't that her boss's car?" she whispered. "Yeah," I said, and took the bagels into my hand more as weapon than breakfast. "Maybe an early meeting," I suggested, while George grunted about dedication. I unlocked the door and called with loud cheer, "Honey, I'm home early, look who I brought for breakfast." The sounds in the kitchen cut off like someone had hit mute, footsteps scrambled and then stopped. When we walked in, Elise stood disheveled and terrified, hair a mess, wearing only my old Police Academy t-shirt. Panic coated her face. Carter Haynes was by the coffee maker in boxers and a stained tank top, clutching a mug like it might ward off discomfort as 3 sets of eyes measured him. The room hummed with silence until I shattered it. "Don't bother getting up on our account, Carter," I said. "Oh wait, you already did." Linda made a sound somewhere between a sob and a deflating balloon. George froze mid-bite. Elise found her practiced tone first. "Tom, you're supposed to be in Boston until tomorrow." Funny thing about conferences, I said. Sometimes they end early. I walked straight to Carter, who was frantically scanning the room for clothing. You know what's really funny? I said. That red Rolex upstairs, the one Elise said she bought at a garage sale. Carter's face drained, he slapped a hand to his wrist where a tan line betrayed habitual watchwear. Elise slid into crisis mode. This isn't what it looks like, she said, smooth and taut. Really? I asked. Because it looks like my wife is screwing her boss in my kitchen while wearing my shirt. Maybe I'm mistaken, 20 years as a detective does weird things to your brain. Linda finally found her voice, hurled an accusation like a spear. Elise Marie Hartwell, what is the meaning of this? It's Elise Bishop, Elise snapped. Mom, she's been mine for 22 years. Carter edged for the door and I watched him. Going somewhere, Carter? Don't forget your watch. I went upstairs, took the Rolex from the nightstand, and strolled back down as if I weren't trembling. Carter had managed to find pants but not dignity. I lobbed the watch at him and it struck his chest and clattered to the floor. Wouldn't want you to be late for your next appointment. His hands shook as he bent to retrieve it. Tom, let's talk about this like adults, he said, voice flaking. Adults? I barked a laugh that had no humor in it. Adults don't sleep with employees' spouses in the family kitchen. Adults don't leave expensive jewelry scattered like evidence. I opened the back door and pointed. Your car's in the driveway, Carter. I suggest you take it. He scooped up his shirt and shoes and bolted, and as he passed I murmured, You forgot something else, Carter. What? Your dignity, you can't pick that up off my kitchen floor. After he fled, the house unspooled into noise, Linda fluttered between wails and interrogations. George sat frozen like a man who'd seen too many bad movies, and Elise went on the offensive, venom replacing panic. You had no right to humiliate me like that, she hissed once her parents had been shooed out the door. Bringing my mother here, ambushing me. I felt something inside fracture. You're screwing your boss in our house, I said. And I had no right? She leveled a glare that wanted to slice. It's not that simple, Tom. You don't understand the pressure I'm under at work. Oh, I understand, I said, cold. He expected you to spread your legs, and you did. Very professional. Her hand slapped my cheek like a gunshot, ringing sharp and clean through the kitchen, and for a moment I tasted copper. I touched my cheek and said flatly, Feel better? This marriage has been over for years, she said, voice flat and brittle. We're just going through the motions. Funny, I must have missed the memo. When exactly did you declare the marriage dead? Before or after you started wearing lingerie to work, she snapped. You're impossible to talk to when you're like this. Like what? I asked. Angry that my wife is sleeping with her boss? Yeah, I can see how that would be inconvenient for you. My phone buzzed then, a text from Jack, our 20-year-old son. Dad, what's going on? Mom's parents called and said there's an emergency. I showed Elise, and for a second her face creased before the mask slid back on. We'll figure something out, she said. No, Elise, I said, grabbing my jacket and keys. I'm done figuring things out for you. I'm going to work. When I come home tonight, you decide whether you want to fix this marriage or end it. But the affair stops now, today, or I make Carter's life very uncomfortable, legally. She was crying as I left, but I'd moved past being softened by tears. At the station, my partner re-poured 2 coffees without asking when he saw me. Rough night, he said, and I told him the basic bones of it. Ray had been my partner 8 years and had met Elise at department events. Carter Haynes, he said, whistling low. That guy's got nerves. I told him I was thinking about what to do. He asked what I wanted. I thought about that for a long time. What did I want? I wanted yesterday back, when my biggest decision was which seminar on digital forensics to attend. I wanted a wife who didn't sleep with her boss. I wanted kids who wouldn't have to pick sides. Those weren't coming back. What I could do was make Carter understand consequences. I wanted him to feel some of the hurt I was feeling. Ray asked if I wanted legal pain or the other kind. Legal, I said. I'm not throwing away my career and pension over this. Good, he said. So what's the plan? For the first time in a long stretch I smiled without irony. You always tell me to use my detective skills for more than burglaries, I said. Time to investigate Carter Haynes thoroughly. Ray grinned. It took 3 days to build a file that would make a man like Carter sweat. 3 days of pulling contacts I'd accumulated in 2 decades, running databases, turning over every stone lawfully. Carter, it turned out, wasn't careful just with his romantic life, he was sloppy with corporate money. The silver BMW had 17 unpaid parking tickets from the past 8 months. His swanky gym membership, more costly than many people's rent, was being billed to the company. The same company paid for his massages, trainer, and supplements. The real jackpot was his expense reports, dinners billed as client meetings, personal gas routed to company accounts, mileage for trips that had nothing to do with work. It wasn't enough to lock him up immediately, but it was plenty to get him fired and to prompt federal interest. I stacked everything in a neat folder and made copies, then called Jack. "Dad, how are you holding up?" he asked. "I'm managing," I said. "Listen, I need a favor. How good are you with computers?" Jack laughed. "Better than you, old man." "Good. I need someone to help with a little project involving your mom's boss." There was a pause, then the familiar teen yawn of mockery. "The guy mom's been screwing?" "Yes." He winced but didn't deny he knew. Kayla had told him, of course Kayla had. At 18, our daughter always took Elisa's side. She idolized her mother's success and blamed me for being boring. Jack surprised me. "Dad, that's actually brilliant and totally legal," he said after I explained. "When do we start?" "Tonight," I said. "Meet me at Murphy's at 8. Murphy's was a cop bar 3 blocks from the station, dark, low-key, the kind of place where plans could be hatched and no one would scream about it. Jack came in on time, looking serious in a way that made me think of the night he totaled my car at 16. We sat in a booth and I slid the folder across. "We're going to make sure Carter's employer knows what kind of man he's hired," I told him. Jack flipped through the documents and whistled low. Receipts, logged expenses, bank records, the messy trail of a man who'd been living beyond his means. "This is a lot," he said. "How do we make sure the company hears about it without it looking like it came from you?" I told him about the anonymous ethics tip line on Carter's company's website. "Can you handle making it look anonymous?" I asked. Jack grinned with the craftiness I'd once had. "Consider it done," he said. "I can make it look like it came from anywhere. I can even make it look like it came from Carter." "Don't do that," I said. "Just keep us untraceable." Jack agreed, and we finished our beers and went back to the house. Elisa's car wasn't in the driveway. "Where's she?" Jack asked. "Saying she's staying at your grandparents', needs space," I said. What she needs is a reality check, Jack said grimly. Thursday morning, Carter Haynes was gone from the company. Harper Williams from Pinnacle Advertising called me herself. "Detective Bishop, I'm Harper Williams, HR," she said. "We've had to terminate Mr. Haynes's employment immediately." "For what?" I asked, keeping my voice like a man passing the time between shifts. "Financial irregularities," Harper said. "Misuse of company funds. We've been conducting an investigation and found enough to act." I made the appropriate concerned noises. Harper didn't need my sympathy. "This may have fallout affecting your wife's position," she added gently. Elisa's promotion to creative director was directly approved by Mr. Haynes outside the usual committee. The board is reviewing his decisions and her promotion may be re-examined. I thanked her and hung up, tasting something that could have been satisfaction or justice. A second later my phone buzzed. Elise, voice trembling with panic. "Tom, did you hear? Carter got fired for financial irregularities." "I heard," I said. "What does this mean for you?" "I don't know yet. I think someone set him up. The timing's suspicious." "Suspicious how?" "Right after, you know." "So you're suggesting I had something to do with Carter's firing?" I said. I thought carefully before answering. I hadn't made Carter steal. If he did steal, he did it himself. But I hadn't sat idly by either. "I'm a detective, Elise," I said. "I investigate things." She swore at me, hung up, and I walked back to my office where Ree was thumbing paperwork. "Looks like the canary got singed," he said. "What now?" I shrugged. "We wait and see how Elise likes being married to a man who fights back." What I hadn't expected came next. Jack called me at work, voice terse. "Dad, Kayla told me Mom's pregnant." The floor dropped from under me. "Pregnant?" I asked, slow. "Yeah. About 6 weeks along." I did the math in my head and the pieces didn't fit. 6 weeks ago I'd been working a double homicide, living on adrenaline and not much else. "It's not mine," I said, quietly. Jack had already been through the deduction. "Kayla thinks it's a blessing. She says Mom deserves happiness and this baby is a new start." The world narrowed to a pinprick. "It gets worse," Jack said. "Mom told Kayla Carter wants to marry her. He's supposedly leaving his wife. Carter, it turned out, had a 15-year marriage and 2 kids. Elise had been not only unfaithful but a homewrecker." "So what's next?" Jack asked. I sat in my car that night outside Carter's real house, suburban, manicured, with a swing set and family life inside. I watched his wife through the kitchen window, a model of domestic normalcy, helping the kids with homework while dinner simmered. She had no idea her husband was being fired or that he'd fathered a child with a woman at his office. Elise texted me, "We need to talk." I drove to her parents'. Linda opened, looking thinned out by worry. Elise sat on the same couch where I'd proposed 23 years ago, pale and hollow-eyed but with something like relief playing in the edges of her face. "Congratulations are in order?" I said, blunt. "Jack told you," she flinched. 6 weeks. "Coincidence," I said flatly. "We haven't been intimate in 2 months. "Dad, no," she insisted. "This isn't his." I sat and kept my distance from her perfume. "You don't get to shift this onto me," I said. "You're pregnant with another man's child. A married man's child. Carter was fired yesterday for stealing. Did he mention that when he promised a new life?" Her color dropped. "He said it was a misunderstanding." "It's not a misunderstanding. It's embezzlement and fraud, things that make him unemployable. You destroyed him. She started to ugly cry, the kind of wail that comes when you know you can't undo your mistake. What am I going to do, Tom? I can't raise a baby alone. I might lose my job. For a split second I felt pity, the woman I'd loved for more than half my adult life, the mother of my children. But then I remembered the watch on my nightstand, the lies, the gaslighting, the way she'd tried to make me the villain. You should have thought about that before you blew up our marriage, I said. Please, Tom. I know I screwed up. We can fix this. How? I asked. How do you work through being pregnant by another man's child? She had no answer. I stood. I'll have my lawyer draw up divorce papers. You can keep the house until it sells, then we split everything 50-50. I'll pay for Jack and Kayla's college until they graduate. The baby? Not mine. I'm done. Elise sobbed as I left, but my resolve didn't waver. One more thing, I said as I walked to the door. Carter's wife doesn't know yet. His kids don't know about their father's affairs and crimes, but they will. When that happens, remember you helped do it. You're destroying not just our family but his. I left her on her mother's couch and drove back to my empty house. 2 weeks later Ray slid a newspaper across Murphy's table where I'd been having coffee. The headline read, "Local ad executive arrested for embezzlement," and there was Carter's mugshot, face ashen. The story detailed more than $200,000 missing and tied to years of falsified expenses. My buddy in white collar says he's trying to make a deal, testify against others for a lighter sentence, Ray said. It clicked in my head, if Elise knew about the stolen money or benefited from it, she could be an accessory. I thought of luxury dinners, weekend getaways, gifts. Could prosecutors connect her to that cash? In the next days Pinnacle fired Elise. She called me, trembling, saying the FBI had come to my parents' house and wanted to talk. They had images and receipts and wanted her side. Tom, I swear I didn't know, she said, voice thin. Did you ever ask where the money came from? I asked. Silence. No, I assumed he made good money. I didn't think about it. Her knack for not looking at inconvenient truths had always been there. I need a lawyer, she begged. Character witnesses. I can give you a lawyer's name, I said finally, but I won't be a character witness. Because of the affair, she asked. Because of everything, I answered. I can't stand in court and vouch for your honesty when you've been lying to us. She cried and hung up, and re-watched me fold the newspaper. You okay? He asked. I'll be, I said. What happens now? I folded the paper and stood. I go home and tell the kids, Jack and Kayla need to know their mother might go to prison. After that, I start over. The trial was messy and public, lasting 3 weeks. Carter pleaded guilty to embezzlement and fraud in exchange for a reduced sentence, 5 years in federal custody, and began cooperating, trying to trade testimony for leniency. His wife divorced him and left the state with the children. Elisa's case was harder to stomach. She'd hired a high-priced attorney with money borrowed from her parents. He painted her as a naive lover deceived by a manipulative boss, but the prosecution had a paper trail. Credit card receipts for dinners and hotels, bank deposits from Carter, texts discussing trips and money. The courtroom readouts were brutal, messages showing Carter offering to cover expensive stays and telling Elise not to worry about money, while he dismissed my smaller, humbler provisions as inadequate. Jack sat beside me when they read those texts aloud. I felt his shoulders tighten and his fingers curl. She called you a loser, he whispered, fury masked with hurt. Even then, the words stung. The jury deliberated for 2 days and returned a mixed verdict. Guilty on conspiracy to commit embezzlement and money laundering, not guilty on 1 count of fraud. The judge gave her 18 months in federal prison followed by 2 years probation. She'd do her time at a minimum security facility in Connecticut, about an hour away. As she was led out in cuffs, she looked back, and whatever was in her face, regret, anger, resignation, I couldn't read it and, by then, didn't care to. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Jack stepped forward and told them in that weary, grown-up way he'd picked up, "My mother made choices. Now she's paying for them." Kayla screamed into the cameras that it was unfair, and Linda and George looked like they'd aged decades. "This is your fault," Linda hissed as I passed. "You destroyed our daughter's life." "Your daughter destroyed her own life," I replied. "I just made sure she wasn't above the law." Time moved on. 6 months later, I found an old cardboard box in the garage full of Elisa's things, photo albums, ticket stubs, love letters from when we believed in forever. At the bottom of the box sat her old engagement ring case. Inside was the ring I'd given her 23 years earlier, forgotten and small in my palm. Jack wandered into the garage and peered around the frame. "Hey, Dad. What's that?" "Your mother's engagement ring," I said. "What are you going to do with it?" He waited. "Sell it? Throw it away? Keep it?" I thought about it. Sell it would be petty, throw it away cruel, and keeping it for Kayla felt presumptuous when she wasn't speaking to me. "I don't know," I said finally. "Jack told me the baby had been born, Elise had a girl, and they'd named her Hope." "Carter's not on the birth certificate," Jack said quietly. "His lawyer advised against it because of the case." So Elise had a child in federal custody, the system, in some twisted way, had decided. Kayla planned to help when Elise got out. I put the ring back and locked the box. "Will you help?" Jack asked, looking at me like a son asking a father to be better than the man he had been. "The baby didn't do anything wrong," he said. "Don't make her pay for her parents' mistakes." I looked at my son and felt both guilty and tired. "I won't take her back," I said. "I'm not going to get back together with your mother. But I'll think about helping the baby." That night I sat on the back porch with a beer and let the idea of justice sit beside me. Carter was in prison. Elise paid her debt, and everyone knew the truth. That should have felt victorious, but the triumph tasted hollow. Ray showed up with a 6-pack and a deck of cards, and we played poker on the porch until the sun went down, not speaking of anything profound. "You know what your problem is?" Ray said as he shuffled. "You won. Carter's in jail, Elisa's paying for it, and you're acting like you lost something." "Maybe I did lose something," I said. "I lost a life I thought I wanted. I lost trust." Ray dealt the cards and won the hand with a straight. "You did the right thing," he said, collecting the pot. "Maybe not pretty, maybe messy, but you did the right thing. Don't let anyone tell you different." I raised my beer to that and we played late into the night. When Ray left, the house felt quieter than before. No more secrets, no more red Rolexes on my nightstand. It was honest and empty. I thought about Hope, what her life would be like, and about Kayla, who was furious but might soften someday, and about Jack, who had seen his father fight and been proud in a way he'd never said. Most of all I thought about Elise in a prison cell, and how fast everything that had seemed permanent had collapsed. I could have told her when she asked where it went wrong. It went wrong the moment she chose a momentary thrill over 22 years of marriage. But she had to learn that herself. Eventually, I turned off the porch light and went to bed. Tomorrow, I told myself, I'd start the rest of my life, the life where I was Tom Bishop again, not just the man whose wife cheated. The life where I would be the protagonist of my own story and no longer the victim of someone else's choices. It felt possible then, and even if it hadn't been pretty, it felt real. After the dust settled and official paperwork had been signed and filed, what I kept circling back to were the small, ordinary things that had once felt like anchors: Elise humming over the sink while she rinsed dishes, the way Jack used to leave his boots by the back door, Kayla's crooked grin when she stole the last cookie, those everyday shards of domestic life suddenly magnified into relics of a past that seemed almost mythic. I walked rooms in the house as if cataloging evidence: the couch where we'd argued about buying a new sofa, the bulletin board in the mudroom with soccer schedules and dentist appointments, the framed program from our kids' elementary school play that tomorrow would be only paper and adhesive. The silence inside my home was honest and raw in a way yelling never had been. It forced me to learn new rhythms: coffee alone in the mornings, doing laundry without the choreography of two people, learning how to split the thermostat like it was a negotiation. People brought casseroles and tried to fix what can't be fixed with chicken and starch. Neighbors who'd invited us to parties now offered awkward condolences. Friends at work slid into the role of allies, quiet at first with the condolences, then practical, offering to take a case or cover a shift. Kids texted from campus and late-night parties. Jack checked in more often than I expected, and when he did, he wasn't just my son but a man catching his balance and offering me the same. He'd been forced to grow up in the span of a week. Kayla was angrier, and her fury made our house feel smaller when she stormed through it. Sometimes I'd find her sitting at the kitchen table staring at receipts. Other times she'd throw plates into boxes with the kind of violent efficiency that looked like art. Linda and George, bless them, oscillated between complicity and sorrow. Years of cooing pride for Elise flipped into fury and then into a worn-out resignation that they were helpless spectators to their daughter's undoing. There were times I wanted to call my mother-in-law and shake her, to tell her compassion would have been more useful than judgment, and then I would imagine myself having made the same choices at her age and the fantasy would slime away with guilt. The legal work wasn't over once Carter was arrested. Federal prosecutors moved slowly but methodically, and the court dates shredded my calendar like confetti. Elisa's suit made it onto the docket, and I sat through long days in the courtroom watching a life I thought I knew being examined like a car at a mechanic's bay, every component pulled apart and judged on condition. Her lawyer tried to brand her as a willing dupe. The prosecution portrayed a woman who had either been oblivious or complicit. There wasn't much room left for the messy human truth. When they read the text messages in court, it felt like being stapled in place. The intimate little jokes were suddenly evidence. The deposition rooms smelled of coffee and old paper, and I watched a parade of colleagues and friends testify or decline to testify with a visible reluctance that felt like betrayal and mercy all at once. Some people didn't want to get involved, others couldn't remember details that would have helped. The kids reacted in ways that broke me more than the rest of the drama did. Jack curling his shoulders against me and saying he felt like he'd been prime ministered into adulthood too early. Kayla shouting that Mom had always been selfish and that I should have seen it sooner. I countered nothing because arguing felt like throwing stones at glass. Our home, which once held birthday candles and whispered late-night confessions, now held boxes labeled Elise in black marker. Friends suggested therapy. I went to a few sessions because even tough guys need a place to say what can't be said around the stove. There I let the bitterness leak out and become something I could watch without flinching. The court sentenced her to that 1.5 years, and the image of her in the orange jumpsuit on the courthouse steps is something I replayed into the small hours more often than I cared to admit. In the months she was away, the mundane logistics of life took on a new weight: visitation requests, subpoenaed documents, the scheduling of phone calls that were limited and monitored. I read articles about incarceration rates and pleaded with myself to feel less triumphant. Justice had been served, but a woman I had loved was reduced to a number on a prison roster. People told me I should feel vindicated. Inside I felt conflicted. Justice, after all, was a cold, practical thing that didn't warm the soft places a human being carries. It didn't put the kids back into safe hands, and it didn't return weekends spent doing nothing in the yard. Carter's trial and sentencing were strangely less satisfying than I'd imagined. Seeing him whisked away in handcuffs did little to salve the ache. He'd been stripped of his trappings and his family had to pick up the pieces, and I had to contend with whatever that successful man had been to my wife that made her abandon the life we'd built. News cycles moved on: another scandal, another trial, but the aftermath remained stitched into our daily life like a stubborn stain. I wrestled with the idea of revenge versus remediation. Did I want to ruin a man, or did I want to convert the ruin into something that could teach a lesson? The latter seemed more moral but hardly as satisfying. Sometimes a man wants to do both. The kids needed anchors more than they needed explanations, so I tried to be that anchor. I drove Jack to interviews for internships and Kayla to therapy appointments. I signed permission slips and set thermostats and learned how to do taxes with a mind that felt like Swiss cheese of late nights and bad coffee. The people at the station were kind in their own blunt way, kept me on cases and out of my own head for long stretches, and that was a mercy. He would rib me about my newfound domesticity, and I would pretend to be amused. Every so often someone would ask if I regretted the path I'd chosen or if I would do things differently. I would take a breath and say what felt the most honest: I would have wished for better choices, but I would not have traded the truth for a comforting lie. That answer soothed nobody but kept me steady. Life continued to press toward routine. I started sleeping again without the thunder of suspicion in my dreams. I watered the plants on the porch, mowed the lawn, and found comfort in small honest labor. At night I'd sometimes go through the box of old photos and let the memory of younger, hopeful days wash over me like a wave that wasn't allowed to pull me under. The ring stayed in the box for a long time, quiet like a relic. When I finally took it out, it was heavier than I'd thought, not for what it was but for what it meant. Letters arrived from Elise in folded sheets, written with a hand that had seemed practiced in softening truths. She thanked me for the kids and asked how they were, and sometimes she said simply, "I'm sorry." I read those letters with a complicated empathy, and sometimes I wrote back with necessary distance and a thin kindness that made both of us feel human. The day I went to see her at the facility for the first time was one I had rehearsed in my head 100 ways. I wasn't sure what to expect: anger, relief, a kind of private show of cruelty, and yet what I felt there was an odd, quiet sorrow. She had lost the crisp confidence that had once edged her words, her face had thinned, and she moved with the slow economy of someone learning to ration everything. We spoke haltingly about the kids and about practical matters. She asked about hope in a way that hurt because the child was both a consequence and an innocent. I told her what I could, that Kayla was angry and Jack was trying to be a man in a hurry. Her eyes filled and the tears were honest, not performative. She told me she regretted the choices but didn't offer the kind of apology that erased the past. There are some injuries that no words can make whole. Hope grew up in a world that had been complicated from the start. Elisa's letters spoke of the baby's bright eyes and quiet nature, of the staff at the facility who cooed and rocked in rotations, and of a baby's first tooth causing a ripple of joy in a place designed to keep such things procedural. Kayla, after months of fury, softened. She began visiting on weekends and sometimes sent me texts that were blunt but tender, like a person learning how to offer compassion without losing her own boundary. "I'm not your mother," she'd tell me, "but I will be here for the baby." Jack, in his steady, quiet way, kept watch like a new kind of sentinel. He'd bring supplies, pick up forms, and call to say he loved me before bedtime. Those small gestures mattered more than the victories in court ever had. Time kept nudging us.